I guess not.
And maybe, okay, there's another.
You stole my soccer cleats. Where'd you put them?
Ate it.
So I think we're all ready and we're live. So I will go ahead and just start with the opening slide, which is this meeting protocol. And just to explain to the public how this Zoom meeting will be conducted. For each application, the chair will announce each application followed by a staff presentation and recommendation. Staff will present the application and the city's recommendation. Staff will control the slide presentation throughout the meeting. Staff will announce comments received and whether anyone has signed up to speak. The applicant, after being sworn in, will be allowed to present their application if there is opposition or questions are raised. If there are no questions or opposition, then normally the board would just move into their discussion and a motion on the matter. That would be
Lee, can I
yes.
stop you right there?
Yes.
That order might raise a problem because a member of the board may have a question and there may not be any public opposition. And I assume that the applicant is still going to have an opportunity, if there's a question from the board, to respond or present his application. In other words, this.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, well, we can always go back and get back to the applicant and open it up to them and invite them to present their application and answer questions.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Absolutely. So then we would hear from any pre-registered attendees that were wanting to speak in favor. And of course, each speaker would be sworn in before speaking. Then staff would recognize the registered attendees for public comments in opposition, and each speaker would be sworn in before speaking. Finally, staff would recognize the applicant for a short rebuttal before the chair closes the public comments and begins board discussion. And for those who do provide comments, people who sign up to speak will be called on when it is your turn to speak, and your microphone will be enabled. You may only speak once on an item, and your microphone will be disabled after you are finished speaking. So with that, we can move into the opening slide, and I will turn it over to our chair.
This is the September 15th, 2020 meeting of the City of Charleston Board of Zoning Appeals, Zoning. Present are Ms. Grass, Mr. Dujan, Ms. Richards, and Mr. Morrison. From city staff are Mr. Batchelder, Ms. Ashley, and Ms. Ellington. These proceedings are being recorded, and we ask that those who speak identify themselves for the record. We will conduct this meeting in usual fashion. We'll first receive information from city staff about the application and their recommendation. If the recommendation is favorable and no one objects to the application, usually the Board of Zoning Appeals treats the matter as being uncontested and passes it as a matter of course. If, however, the city recommends against the application or there is opposition to the application, we treat the application as contested and hear from the applicant and anyone else who's in favor of the application. Next, we hear from anyone opposed, followed by a short rebuttal from the applicant. We then close the public hearing portion of the meeting for that particular application and open the discussion to the Board of Zoning Appeals members only. We'll then make a decision to approve with conditions, or deny the application. The Board of Zoning Appeals has the authority to do three things. First, to hear appeals to decisions of the zoning administrator. Second, to grant special exceptions, the fact-finding function of the board. And third, to grant variances to the zoning ordinance if the application meets the hardship test outlined in section 54-924 of the ordinance. The board may deliberate and make a final decision on a matter by a majority vote of members present at the hearing and qualified to vote, provided that not less than a quorum is present and qualified to vote. However, an affirmative vote of 2/3 of the board members present and voting shall be required before a use variance may be granted. For a variance to be granted, the Board of Zoning Appeals must make the following findings. A, that there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. B, these conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. C, because of these conditions, the application of the ordinance to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And D, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Thank you. Anything else on that, Mr. Batchelor?
No, I think that covers it. So we're ready to start with the first item, if you want to.
First item on the agenda. Well, there's one thing I see on the agenda. Ms. Ashby, it looks like we have one deferral.
That's correct.
Item number 7, 127 Fishburne Street has been deferred and will not be heard at this meeting. Are there any other deferrals or withdrawals?
No.
No,
First item on the agenda is 1079 Seaside Lane. Request a use variance from section 54-203 to allow a mobile home in an SR1 single-family residential zone district. Mr. Batchelor.
This is a residentially zoned property, SR1 zone property on James Island. And this map shows the lot in question on Seaside Lane. But more importantly, the zoning map shows the lot and the adjoining lot that are in the city of Charleston, and the lot across the street on Seaside Lane that is also in the city of Charleston. All the other lots that don't have a color associated with them, those are not in the city of Charleston. Those are actually under the jurisdiction of the town of James Island. So these properties were actually annexed into the city a number of years ago before the town of James Island was incorporated. And they remain in the city while all the other lots are now part of the town of James Island. And I just want to bring that up because that will be relevant to the recommendation that we have. But the request is to allow a mobile home or manufactured home to be placed on this SR1 zone lot. And it's a use variance because a manufactured home is a type of use. In other words, a manufactured home is a home that is brought to the site on a chassis and then moved onto the property and placed on a foundation that is constructed to meet wind loads and other building code requirements. But that home will remain on a chassis. So it is basically, it's a manufactured home. It's not built to the same building codes that a site-built or modular home is built to. It's built to a code that is set by the federal government through the Housing and Urban Development Department. So that becomes a use variance because that type of home is a type of a use and is not permitted under our zoning ordinance in this zoning district. So when the applicant contacted us, we said, well, I wonder what the town of James Island would say if this lot was in the town. Because as you can see, all the other properties that surround this lot, except for the one directly across the street and next door, are in the town of James Island. So the applicant contacted the town of James Island and obtained a letter from the planning director that stated, and this is part of the information. So they obtained this letter from Kristen Crane, the planning director of the town of James Island, indicating that this property, if it was in the town of James Island, would be eligible for a manufactured home under their zoning regulations that apply to all these other properties in the vicinity. They have a standard in their zoning ordinance that says that they have to consider the other homes within 300 feet of the subject lot and whether the 25% or more of those lots contain manufactured homes. And in this case, they found that there are 20 residences within 300 feet of this lot, and that 6 of those residences are manufactured homes. Therefore, they would allow a manufactured home on this lot if this lot was in the town of James Island. And I think that's relevant because that is that means that the neighboring property, if somebody was to had a vacant lot, for instance, the lot two doors away, if they were to apply for a manufactured home, the town of James Island would permit that. So this lot, because of its zoning and its location within the city of Charleston, is unreasonably restricted, in our opinion, and therefore a variance is warranted to allow this manufactured home to be placed on this lot. This is a neighborhood that was once part of rural James Island, now part of suburban James Island, and the town, the area around it has been developed. But there are still mobile homes in this immediate area. So the other thing to point out is that the lot, as you can see on this site plan, provides plenty of space to place this manufactured home and meet setback requirements. The dashed lines indicate the setback requirements for the lot, and you can see that the home fits very nicely within that boundary. So there's no issue with setbacks, there's no issue with parking. The only issue is the type of house to be placed on this lot. And with the letter from the town of James Island, I feel that they do meet the variance test, and we recommend approval of this to you. We don't have anybody that has submitted any comments in objection to this request. We don't have anybody that signed up to speak in opposition to this request. So, so we're in favor, and we don't know of anybody who's opposed to this. And I know that the applicants are on, and I'll be happy to promote them and allow them to speak to the board if the board members have any questions or concerns.
Lee, I got one question really for you.
Sure.
This may be an impractical worry, but if the public notice published for this variance request designated it as a City of Charleston notice, and some neighbor believed and knew that the City of Charleston would be highly unlikely to permit this use in that spot. But now what we're considering is that because it's strangely located annexation, the city is looking at this lot, considering it as if it were a James Island lot, not a city lot. I'm just wondering if the notice published was good enough so we can be assured that no neighbor was laying back thinking, heck, the city's not going to allow it. They don't allow that stuff. They don't allow this gun home. And but I suppose that's an unreasonable worry, but we're really judging this thing by James Island standards, not by city standards, is what you're saying.
I'm saying that I think it's relevant that an adjoining lot to this lot, if it were vacant and somebody wanted to place a manufactured home on that lot, the town would allow it because of the presence of other manufactured homes in the immediate area.
Yeah, and I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm good with it. I agree with you. It's just an odd situation.
It is an odd situation, and it's one of these situations that we do come across. We have a few different neighborhoods on James Island where there's a mix of homes and manufactured homes, and so we've had these kinds of requests in the past, and sometimes we've said no, and sometimes we've said yes. But in this case, given that the town would allow it, and that there are other manufactured homes in the immediate area surrounding this lot, I think it's a reasonable request, and I think they do meet the variance test. So.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
City recommends approval. I personally think this is the reason our vote exists, is to handle questions like this. So I think for all the reasons that Mr. Batchel is explained, I understand his recommendation. You mentioned there is no opposition, but I'm going to call to the public to see if there's any opposition present.
Well, we don't have any way to recognize somebody if they haven't signed up ahead of time.
So nobody's registered.
We have the applicants if you'd like to hear from them.
Only opposition.
Okay.
No opposition. Are there any other questions or any motions?
I'd like to make a motion for approval.
Second?
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, I go down the list, signify by saying aye. Ms. Grass?
Aye.
Ms. Richards?
Aye.
Mr. Dujon?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson votes aye. Unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 5 Porter's Court. Request special exception under section 54-501 to allow construction of a single-family residence on a lot of insufficient size. Lot area 1,124 square feet, 2,500 square feet required, zone DR2F. Mr. Batchelor.
Thank you. So 5 Porter's Court is a vacant lot in the Cannonboro, Elliottboro neighborhood. And Porter's Court, which is the pedestrian street that this lot fronts on, runs just north of Bogard Street up to Humphrey Court. It is a little pedestrian street that has other single-family homes on it. Most of these lots have homes on them. And as you can see, the other lots on Porter's Court are also very small, like this one. And so the idea of building a single-family home on this lot makes sense when you see that there are so many other homes on similarly sized lots. And there's a history. Porter's Court, of course, dates back many years, but more recently, there's a history of the city and other affordable housing groups becoming involved in the rehab or the construction of new homes on this street for affordable housing. And this is another example of that type of request where a home is proposed that will be proportionate to this lot. It's a 2-bedroom, 2.5 bath house, about 1,100 square feet in size. And but because of the lot size, excuse me, being smaller than the minimum required lot size for the zoning district, the application requires your approval, and that's the only issue that they're before the board for. And I would also point out that the fact that this is a affordable housing, single-family home ownership opportunity means that the minimum lot size for this is actually 1,400 square feet in size instead of 2,500 square feet.
Is what size, Lee? I'm sorry.
1,400 square feet.
Okay.
And that's a smaller lot size that's required based on the fact that this is an affordable housing project and it is a 2-bedroom house. So I just want to mention that right off the bat. If I move on, this is an aerial view showing the court. And let's see, I'm going to turn this on. So this is the lot in question right here. And you can see that there are some houses on Porter's Court, this one being one of them, maybe this one as well, maybe this one right here, that are older homes, probably even predating zoning regulations. And then there are newer homes, the more contemporary homes that you see here that went through the same kind of approval process some years ago through the Board of Zoning Appeals to be approved and constructed. So the applicant has submitted their information explaining the special exception requirement, which is a special exception to allow construction of a single-family home on a lot of insufficient size. And for that, the board standard is whether the site plan is deemed in compliance with the intent and purposes of the zoning ordinance. In other words, is the site plan of this proposed house suitable for the property based on the requirements of the zoning ordinance? we go to the plans, you can see photographs that show Porter's Court. Again, this is just a pedestrian street. You could get bicycles down there, maybe a golf cart, but not much else. This is a survey of the lot, 1,124 square feet in size. These are the plans showing the proposed house, two-story house with living and kitchen space on the ground floor, a small half bath. And also on this site plan, you can see the minimum setback requirements shown with this red dashed line right here. So this house fits within those setback requirements and also does not exceed the allowed lot occupancy. It's 49%, which is very reasonable for this size lot in this zoning district. So kitchen, living space on the ground floor, and 2 bedrooms and 2 baths on the upper floor. About 1,100 square feet in size. These are the plans. These will require, I believe they will require BAR approval. And the streetscape, this is the existing vacant lot. This is the house that is proposed, and you can see one of the smaller homes on that side of Porter's Court. So that concludes the presentation, but I think I'm going to vary from the procedure a little bit in this case, because I do think that it is appropriate for the board members to get a little bit more background on Porter's Court and on the affordable housing aspect of this application from people who know a lot more about it than I do. And again, there's a history of other homes on this court coming before the board in the past. That may predate most of you, but I think it's worth you hearing a little bit more from the applicant and a person with the city who can speak to the affordable housing program that this will be part of. So if you're agreeable to that, I can invite them to speak.
You had a recommendation, Lee?
My recommendation is for approval. I'm sorry. So I'm going to promote Julia Martin. And also the director of the city's Department of Housing and Community Development, Gianna Shaw Johnson.
Hello?
Okay.
Right here? Yeah.
Julia, is that you?
Yeah, it is.
Let me just ask, let me swear you in first.
Okay, sure.
So do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Julia Martin, the architect for this project, as well as the next item on the agenda, number 14, Porter's Court, which is nearly identical. And my client is the city's Department of Housing and Urban Development. We are happy to be helping them with this proposal for 2 new owner-occupied affordable dwellings on this lovely historic pedestrian court, which was originally developed near the end of the 19th century to provide housing for middle-class working families, and it's continuing to carry that mantle. We have enormous respect for the scale and rhythm of the court, and the structures proposed are replacing very similar dwellings which once stood in these very spots, as shown on the Sanborn map we provided. I don't know if it's easy for you, Lee, to show that sheet, it's the site plan.
Wondering,
Next one. Oh, sorry, next one.
this one? Yes.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's possible to zoom in, but it's there out on the lower right of that, and you can just see that these lots were historically developed and filled with houses of similar scale to what we're proposing. And I think if Gianna is with us, I would like to turn it over to her and let her speak for a second, and then I'll come back and just tell you a little more about the architectural aspects of this application.
Gianna?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. Can I swear you in?
Sure.
Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you as well. So for the purpose of context for the board, first, thank you all for considering the request this evening. I am the director for the Department of Housing and Community Development, and the properties that are before you this evening, both 5 Porters Court and 14 Porters Court, are properties that the city of Charleston purchased many years ago. The development of this court, just from a little bit of history, was done in concert with the Episcopal Diocese Choteau. Most of the homes that are built on this court, except those that are market rate, were built with the city of Charleston in concert with the Episcopal Diocese Choteau. These homes were constructed, again, for the purposes of providing affordably priced homes. And we worked with them both with the acquisition of land and for the financing of the construction of these homes. And so 5 Porters Court, which is the property that has been highlighted first, is one that for a time we allowed the community to use as a garden per request to me from Mayor Riley. It goes back that far. Basically, we were awaiting construction of this particular property by our nonprofit partner. And so while we waited for them to complete other projects, the mayor asked if we could allow the community to put a garden on that lot on number 5. That request had come from a lady who's now deceased, Miss Miller, who also purchased a property facing Bogart Street in this community. And so we allowed that, advising the community that when we were ready to build, we would have to proceed with building because the need for affordable housing and the cost for lots, in particular on the peninsula, were at a premium, but because they wanted to build a garden and we had time to allow that, we did. So at this point, we are ready to proceed. We amended our MOU with the Episcopal Diocese Choteau more than a year ago, and some of the lots that they were not able to complete, the city basically went through a competitive bid and had those designed and built out. And so we wanted to finish the work that we started on Porters Court. So in addition to Porters Court, probably more information than you want, literally right across the street is Peakson's Court, where another 12 homes that are very well designed, very aesthetically pleasing, and blend well into the community. We worked with another nonprofit organization to build those as well. So here again, what we want to do, the Episcopal Diocese Choteau finished or are completing some houses back on Humphreys Court, and we want to finalize what we started many years ago on Porters Court and literally help to meet the need of affordably priced housing on the peninsula. Many of you know that the need is very great for affordably priced housing in our community and in our Tri-County area. And these 2 homes will basically help us to continue to meet that goal. And I'm glad to answer any other questions that you might have.
Whenever you'd like, I can resume my comments or.
Oh, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Gianna. So regarding the proposed dwellings on these 2 lots, I think it's important to point out that this is not new development, but rather restoration of the continuity of this court. The lots at 5 and 14 Porters Court have historically supported similar dwellings, although unfortunately several of these were lost over the last century. And our intention with these designs was to respect the traditional scale and mass of the historic houses and to comply with current zoning requirements. The only request we're making today, as has been explained, is for permission to rebuild a dwelling on this historic lot, which is smaller than the current ordinance requires. The design is otherwise entirely compliant, as Lee explained, and it's exempted from providing off-street parking by a provision in the ordinance that applies to deed-restricted affordable housing, which this will be. And I'd like to just point out that we recently designed another affordable house up on Humphrey Court, and even though that same provision applied there as well, we did provide parking, because it was physically possible. But here on Porter's, all of the lots are in a similar situation, and none of them can accommodate off-street parking. And finally, I do recognize that the current residents of Porter's Court have appreciated the temporary use of number 5 as a garden space. And if there's interest in transplanting some of the plants that have taken root there, I'd be happy to help coordinate that with the neighbors. And that's all I have, but I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. Thank you very much for considering our application.
And I would like to also mention to the board that I do have a letter of support and a couple letters of opposition. The letter of support comes from Stephen Ramos, who is a resident at 48 Bogard Street. And he writes to say that he wanted to voice his support for the BZA applications at 5 and 14 Porter's Court. They're a short distance from his house. The special exception requests are consistent with the type of development that is already present on Porter's Court. Having houses fill in the missing teeth on this street will be great for the neighborhood. Please approve these applications. And then I have 2 letters of opposition. One comes from Julia Parsons, who is the owner of 11 Porter's Court since 2017. And she writes that as the owner of 11 Porter's Court, she's writing to express opposition to the proposed rezoning of 5 and 14 Porter's Court. Most significantly, the proposal runs counter to the recommendations of the area character appraisal for Cannonboro Elliott Borough neighborhood that the City of Charleston commissioned 11 years ago, which provides a neighborhood-specific framework within which to evaluate new development. Her opposition is based on the following 4 concerns: lack of green space. I am for plans to protect and add green space. Appraisal observes a lack of park space in Cannonboro Elliott Borough, notes that parks are vital to neighborhood vibrancy, and recommends the creation of a community garden on Porter's Court. Instead, the proposed zoning variance would eliminate scarce green space, putting the informal garden at 5 Porter's Court. Second point, already small lot sizes. I'm in favor of houses that are proportionate to the lot size. This area already has some of the smallest lots in the neighborhood, the highest lot coverage compared to other parts of the neighborhood. The proposal for a zone variance to waive the minimum lot size by nearly a half for dwellings on Porter's Court would exacerbate this further. And while the architectural renderings of the proposed dwellings look nice, the space between the houses does not appear to be in scale, and it will be more crowded than it appears. Third point, parking pressure. I understand the city's architect, from the city's architect, that the zoning ordinance includes an exemption for off-street parking, which applies to deed-restricted affordable housing dwellings like the ones proposed for 5 and 14. That, however, does not mean that residents of the proposed dwellings would not have a car. None of the houses on Porter's Court and pedestrian walkway have a driveway or parking. So additional dwellings on the street add pressure to the already limited street parking situation. As a single female, I don't want to park and walk several blocks alone in the dark to get home because parking near my house is unavailable. Fourth point is acceleration of weather-related problems. I understand the city's desire to provide more affordable housing. However, the area character appraisal does not assess Porter's Court as an underdeveloped area in need of more construction. In fact, more construction at the expense of the green space heightens my concern about the storm drain off that is washing away the soil in front of my house, no matter how many bags of gravel or dirt I buy. The city of Charleston should not undertake decisions to reduce the amount of soil or stormwater runoff to drain naturally in areas with known issues. When doing so could undermine the structural integrity of my property. I need the city's protection and commitment to do no harm. Closing, I encourage the board to review the appraisal and make it a major factor in this decision. And then I also have a letter that, or an email from Greg Ness at 10 Porter's Court, who writes that he has questions about the stormwater runoff, what will be done about the constrained parking impact on the neighborhood, and wants a deferral of the hearing until interested neighbors have more time to review and potentially hire counsel in the event we want to provide a more thorough opposition response to both applications. So those are the 2 letters of opposition and the 1 letter of support. And if there's any rebuttal from the applicant to any points that have been made, Ms. Martin, could you briefly provide that?
Sure. You know, I think we addressed most of that stuff in our presentation already, but I just wanted to let you know that I did respond and communicate with Mr. Ness. And this is 100% hearsay at this point on my part, but I believe I was able to address some of his concerns. And at last I heard he was not planning to hire counsel, and he sort of understood our position. That although I completely understand the parking difficulties in this neighborhood, and I'm sure there are runoff issues that are legitimate as well, I just don't feel like those are particularly germane to the question at hand of just rebuilding the dwellings on these 2 small lots.
Thank you very much. Mr. Batchelor, we have no one registered in opposition.
No one has signed up to speak in opposition.
Very good. That closes the public hearing section of the meeting. Is there any questions or any motions? Any comments?
I'm just wondering where all the existing residents of Porter's Court park, to the extent they have cars. Where do they currently park?
There is a, if I go back to this slide, so I believe that this surface parking lot, and
That's
Deanna,
correct.
you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe this surface parking lot is available for certain residents of Porter's Court. Is that the way that works?
That's correct, Lee. Naturally, when we built these homes and renovated some with the Edie Chodo, as we call them, everyone did not need a parking space, but we created that parking lot literally in the front near Bogart Street for the purposes of having individuals who purchased homes under the first-time home ownership to park there. Very similar to what we did with some other developments that we've supported in this community. So we provided some parking, and at the time it met the need. And certainly there may be the necessity for folks to park on the street, if you will, near the development at this time. There is also a few in the rear of Porter's Court on Humphreys Court, where the Edie Choto is providing some parking there and may have an opportunity for additional at least one or two additional in the rear of this area on Humphreys Court. I need to confirm all of that with them, but certainly what we've attempted to do was provide at least one where we could. And then naturally, if we couldn't, we indicated to the prospective purchaser that they would have to park on street, which is not uncommon in our urban communities. But to date, we have basically supplied what you see before you this evening.
I think that's a good question about the parking, but we have to remember that that's not an issue for our deliberation tonight as the application was submitted.
Where is the 14 Porter's Court lot?
Let's don't move on to that yet, Hal.
We haven't moved on, but
Okay.
I just point out it's the lot up here towards Humphrey Court. You see my
Yeah,
laser pointer?
yeah, I assume that's what it was.
Any other comments or motions?
I just wanted to say I appreciate the comments from the letters. However, I'm pleased to see that, you know, these projects are providing much needed affordable housing, and it's also restoring the historic streetscape. So I would make a motion to approve the application.
Motion for approval, is there a second?
Second.
Any other comments? I think I agree with Ms. Grass that it is a tight situation. There's no question about it. And Mr. Morrison's concern about the parking is appropriate. However, there never has been parking on Porter's Court to begin with, even when it had a full bevy of houses. I think as the application is submitted, they've done a good job doing what they could to size it appropriately for the lot in question, and I intend to vote in favor of the motion. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ms. Grass?
Aye.
Mr. Dujan? Mr. Dujan?
You're muted. He's muted.
Ms. Richards?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Dujan? Mr. Robinson votes aye. I think we've lost one member.
I think we've lost him.
Well, we have sufficient votes at this point with 4 ayes. So I will state that the motion is approved.
And he seconded the motion.
Yes.
Well, we got 4.
Yes. I'm sorry, my Y went out for a second.
How do you vote?
I vote yes.
Okay, so
Approve.
it's unanimous. It's unanimous. Good. So the application is unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 14 Porter's Court. Request special exception under section 54501 to allow single-family residence on a lot of insufficient size. Lot area 1,086 square feet, 2,500 square feet required, zone DR2F. Mr. Batchel.
So this is the other vacant lot that where a home is proposed, and my presentation is the same. This lot is a little bit smaller, and again, the minimum lot size is actually 1,400 square feet based on a 2-bedroom house that is proposed. affordable housing house that is proposed for this lot. And the house itself is slightly smaller as a result of the smaller lot. So if I go through this, so this is the vacant lot, which is 14 Porter's Court, close to Humphreys Court. And the house footprint is, the other one was about 600, well, about 550 square feet, 550 square feet. So this is 483 square feet. And it's a 2-story house with living, kitchen on the ground floor, and 2 bedrooms and 1 bath upstairs. So slightly smaller, but just under 1,000 square feet in total size. And again, no parking is required because this is an affordable housing deed restricted property, and for a first-time home buyer. And so our recommendation is for approval. If I can go to the elevations, you'll see very similar in appearance, and fits into the streetscape on that side of Porter's Court very nicely, very appropriately sized for the lot and its location on Porter's Court. So our recommendation is for approval, and we have the same letter of support from Mr. Ramos and same letter of non-support or objection from Ms. Parsons and Mr. Ness, raising the same points.
Lee, I think we can make those a matter of record without having to read them in.
Yes.
Does the applicant wish to be heard again on this issue?
No, thank you.
No opposition is registered to speak.
That's correct. There's no one signed up to speak in opposition to this request, and no other comments in opposition were submitted.
Are there any comments, questions, or motions from the board?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ms. Grass?
Aye.
Mr. Dujan? Mr. Dujan?
Aye. Aye.
Ms. Richards?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson votes aye. The application is unanimously approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number 4 on the agenda is 20 Shepherd Street. Request special exception under section 54-110 to allow a horizontal expansion, bedroom, bath, stair, and vertical extension, 2nd story bedroom, bath, stair, to a non-conforming building footprint that extends a non-conforming 0-foot east side setback, 3 feet required. Request variance from section 54-301 to allow additions, stairs, bedroom, bath, having a 64% lot occupancy. 50% is a limitation. Existing lot occupancy is 63%. Zone DR2F. Mr. Batchelder.
So here again, we have 2 applications, 20 and 22 Shepherd Street, that are adjacent to each other, actually, in this case, and similar type requests for each. Same applicant and owner for each. And these two properties are in the East Side neighborhood. And each of these properties actually has a house on it. So these are not vacant lots. These are proposals to renovate and make changes to existing homes. The homes in question are on Shepherd Street between Nassau and Hanover Street. The zoning map shows the zoning of 20 Shepherd Street and 22 next door. Both have the D2F zoning, which applies to most properties in the East Side neighborhood. The applicant submitted their explanation of how they feel they meet the requirements of the ordinance and photographs of the existing home on this lot. So this is 20 Shepherd Street from the front, from the side, and from the other side, the east side. And you can see that it's in poor condition. Here are more photographs of the back of the house. Has been vacant for some time and certainly in need of renovation because it's deteriorating and getting worse and worse. So the applicant is proposing to remove some additions to the original house. The additions shown here where my cursor is located. And then you see the original house, which is the rectangle, lightly shaded rectangle here. After removing those additions, they would build back a new addition onto the back of the property that includes a loft bedroom. And so living space, let's see, so here's the proposed ground floor, living space, kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and then in a loft space or second floor, small second floor, in the addition, there would be a third bedroom and a bathroom. So that is the request, is to allow the special exceptions, to allow the horizontal expansion for the bedroom, bath, and stair, and vertical extension for that second floor bedroom addition in a house footprint that does not meet the 3-foot east side setback. It sits on the property line, so it encroaches into that setback that is required, and that's the non-conforming building footprint that is proposed to be changed. And if we go back to, well, I'll just show you these elevations. So you see the existing on the left, well, actually on the top, these are the existing, and this is the addition to the original house that would be removed. And then the new elevations on the bottom of this drawing. And then the other side and the rear elevation is shown here. And if you go back to the site plan, you can see that the proposed changes will actually allow for 2 off-street parking spaces, whereas now there's just room for 1 off-street parking space with the existing addition and stairs. So there will be two spaces on this property provided with the renovation. So the only issue is the special exception for the changes to the footprint and the variance to allow these additions to increase lot occupancy buildings on this lot by 1%. So a very small increase there. And our recommendation is for approval. We're very happy to see somebody take on this, the task of renovating and these houses and putting them back into use. And I'm going to just, in case well, let me hold off on that, but our recommendation is for approval, and we don't have anybody who has signed up to speak in opposition to this request, and we don't have any comments in opposition to this request.
City moves for, recommends approval, and there's no opposition present or no opposition by letter.
That's correct.
Are there any comments, questions, or motions from the board?
I move for approval.
Move for approval, is there a second?
I'll second it.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ms. Grass?
Aye.
Mr. Judan, I apologize. It's a rookie mistake. I transposed the syllables in your name last time. And I just realized I did that. So I apologize. Mr. Judan. Mr. Judan? Ms. Richards?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Judan?
I think we've, I don't see him on here.
Yeah, I don't either. I think he's disconnected.
I think we lost him.
Robinson votes aye. So we have a, well, let's see, we can still do it.
Right, we still have a quorum.
We still have a quorum. So we have a 4-aye vote for the special exception and the variance request. And the motion, I mean, the application is approved. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 22 Shepherd Street. Request special exception under section 54-110 to allow an addition, bedroom, bath that extends a non-conforming 0-foot east side setback, 3 feet required. Request a variance from section 54-301 to allow additions, stairs, bedroom, bath, having a 56% lot occupancy, 50% limitation, existing lot occupancy 44%, zone DR2F. Mr. Batchelder.
So this is the lot next door, and again, it has a existing dilapidated home on it. You know, skip right forward. So here's the lot in question, and these are photographs of the existing home on that lot, and you can see it. These photographs, it appears to be in worse condition than 20 Shepherd Street, although don't really know what the inside looks like. But nevertheless, it's been vacant for some time, and the applicant would like to invest in this property and fix it up, and in order to do so, they would like to make some changes. And you can see it's a very small house to begin with, and it does not have the additions on the back that the neighboring house had, but the applicant is proposing to add an addition in back of the existing house, and that addition will extend the non-conforming side setback, 0-foot side setback, and increase the lot occupancy above the 50% limit to a to 56%. This house is proposed to be smaller than the neighboring house, but it will also have 2 off-street parking spaces. And if I go over here, so here's the floor plan. So it's just a 2-bedroom house. There's no second floor. There is a little deck that's being proposed on the top of that addition. And these are elevations. Another thing I should point out is that both 20 and 22 Shepherd Street will need to be raised a little bit in order to comply with flood zone requirements. So in addition to the renovation, they're going to have to basically build a new foundation and raise these houses up a couple feet, 2-3 feet higher than they currently are. And so more elevations. And again, we don't have anybody that signed up to speak in opposition, and we did not receive any comments in opposition to this request. So our recommendation is for approval.
City's recommendation is for approval, and there's no one to speak.
That's correct.
Pardon me?
That's correct.
And no letters of opposition. Any comments, questions, or motion from the board?
I'll make a motion for approval.
Move for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye. Ms. Grass?
Aye.
Ms. Jadon?
Aye.
Ms. Richards?
Aye.
Mr. Morrison?
Aye.
Mr. Robinson votes aye. It's unanimously approved. Thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is 7 Colleton Drive, Burnsdown. Request variance from section 54-301 to allow a detached accessory building carport with a 5-foot front setback, 60 feet required, zone SR2.
So 7 Colleton Drive is a home in Burnsdowns. And like many homes in many of the homes in Burnsdowns, it does not have a garage. But you can see from this map that this lot is a bit unusual. It is on the intersection of Colleton Drive and 10th Street. And the home, as you can see from this zoning map, faces the intersection. So, the home has 2 frontages, although Colleton Drive is where the address is located for the property. It's where the driveway is located. So we're treating that as the front of the lot. And this aerial view gives you a better perspective on the property and the unusual nature of it. So applying setback requirements to these kinds of lots is a little bit challenging sometimes. But, and especially since the neighborhood was built before the city had zoning over there in that part of the city. So, but you can also see in this photograph that there are some large trees around the property. So these large oak trees on 10th Street, they are street trees. And then there are some large trees on the property over here. And if I go to the site plan, you can see how the location of this proposed carport over here on the side of the house. There'll be a new driveway coming off Colleton, and in a minute you'll see photo, well, next slide, you'll see the photograph showing the existing driveway, which is over in this area of the property. So there's really no other location to have a driveway than off of Colleton Drive. These two large trees on 10th Street would be impacted by any driveway and curb cut that you make on that side. There is limited room over here as well to place any kind of a carport or garage. And then on this side, you see a 24-inch oak tree over here. So that grand tree is also impacting what can happen on this lot. Okay. So moving on, here is the photograph showing the existing driveway. And then you see on the top the drawing that shows the proposed carport on the side of the house. Another perspective, this looking more from 10th Street. And then these are computer-generated images of the proposed carport. All to give you a better idea of what this will end up looking like.
So Lee, I don't see that big dormer second floor portion of this existing house that's depicted here close to the carport.
So that is a new addition that is being proposed as well, and that doesn't require any board approval.
Okay.
But that is a change that they are proposing to make. You don't see that on this drawing.
Right.
This image of the existing house. So this is a new owner, and they would like to make changes to the house, invest in the property, and add this carport addition. And it's the carport addition that requires the board's approval because it cannot meet the setback requirement. If it's attached, it only has to meet a 25-foot setback. And it is kind of partially attached to the house. You can see, if you consider it to be unattached, it's supposed to be 60 feet off the front property line. But either way, it can't meet a setback requirement from Colleton Drive, so that's the variance request that's before you. It does meet the minimum 9-foot side setback requirement for a building in this lot.
So is it 2 cars in width? Is that the idea?
It appears to be 2 cars in width, and the architect is in the meeting right now, and I'll be happy to let him speak to that question. So I'm going to just promote him to be a panelist. And but anyway, so that is the proposal, and I'll just point out that we have not received no one has signed up to speak in opposition to this request, and we haven't received any comments in opposition, but we do have a sort of a petition that was signed in support of this request. And this is just something I'll read briefly. This is, it says that Claudia and David Cohen are seeking a variance to construct a carport at 7 Colleton the attached images of the proposed renovation of the house and new carport. We would like you to support our request for a variance and allow us to share this information about your support with the appropriate zoning review officials. And then names and addresses are listed. Mike and Marie Miller at 8 Colleton Drive. Wilson, who says carport will be no problem for us. Wilson and Sarah Daniel at 6 Colleton Drive say ditto. Elizabeth, I can't read her last name, at 2 Colleton Drive. Jacques Larson at 89 Colleton says it looks great. William Loader at 5 Colleton Drive comments that it looks cool. Ginger Evans, I believe, and I don't see the address. Katie and David Decker at 2 Ludwell. Love it. Welcome to the hood. So, and we've looked and we see that all the adjacent property owners, including the property owner across Colleton Drive, have signed this petition indicating their support for this request. So we have support from the immediate neighbors. Nobody has signed up to speak in opposition, and no comments in opposition have been received. And we recommend approval of this request. We feel that this is a very good proposal for locating a carport on this property. Garages are not necessarily typical, or were not typical originally in Burns Downs, but many homes have had garages added over the years and carports, and some look better than others, and we think this is a very good design for siting and building a carport on this property. So we recommend approval of the variance request.
City recommends approval, and no opposition that wishes to speak, and no opposition on record with letters. Any comments, any questions, any motions from the board?
I have a quick question, just because the issue regarding the preservation of the trees was part of the variance request and discussion. Were any trees, was there a need for any of the trees to be removed at all with this design?
No, this proposal does not require any trees to be removed.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard to tell from the plan.
It is I don't have a good image of that, but and Ryan Lewis is the architect who designed this, and he has promoted him to be a panelist. And Ryan, if you want to speak and address that question, you're welcome to.
Sure, I'm here. Yes, we are not proposing of removing any grand trees or any trees that would be protected with the addition of this carport.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any motions?
Move approval.
There's a second.
Second.
All in favor signify by saying aye. Ms. Grass,
Hi.
Mr. Judon,
Aye.
Ms. Richards,
Aye.
Mr. Morrison,
Aye.
Mr. Robinson's aye, unanimously approved. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I believe that concludes the meeting.
Yes, that concludes the meeting. Thank you, board members.
Thank you, Lee.
Dan Penny.
Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Have a
very
blessed
much.
night.
Night.
Good night.
Bye-bye. Be safe.
Yeah. You too, Penny.
Thank you.